We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
A robot.
Hello, everyone, and hello, humans. Welcome to Not a Robot's Marvel Comics Weekly Review Show. Today, we're talking about Mighty Valkyries number 5, Iron Man number 12, Marauders number 24, Last Annihilation Black Panther, Kang the Conqueror number 2, Fantastic Four Life Story number 4, Web of Spider-Man number 5, Black Widow number 11, Fantastic Four number 35, the 60-year anniversary. And on our soapbox today, we've got X-Men Trial of Magneto number 2, Spider-Woman number 15, and Eternals Thanos Rises. My name is Kirk, and I didn't come up with a clever catchphrase today, and I'm joined by our elite panel of judges. We have Brandon.
I'm only here because the Avengers are busy this week.
And Jessica.
I'm Jessica, and if I went bald, I could finally cosplay as Nebula.
We're here to read, critique, and review Marvel's weekly releases without any interference from the publisher. If you like our show, you can find us on Twitter at NotARobotComics. You can find me on Twitter at Kirk Hopko, and Jess is there at Jessica Hopko. We answer show mail sent to notarobotcomics@gmail.com. Before we get going, I just want to say thank you to all our Patreon supporters who help out with $1 or more a month, and thank you listeners too. Like, download, and share our episodes so we can get more listeners and bring you more content. You can get access to our Patreon and the rest of the amazing Not a Robot podcast shows at notarobotpodcasts.com. So everyone, before we dive into the round of reviews this week, anything hit the news?
I gotta think. I mean, I don't know if there's any kind of crazy Marvel Comics news.
I don't think so. I have we met since the last Hawkeye trailer, or since the Hawkeye trailer dropped?
Ooh, it feels like it. Honestly, it feels like it could have been 2 weeks ago with how crazy that was. So I don't remember, but I mean, we can still talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, we can touch on that. The Hawkeye trailer dropped. I don't know if we've talked about it on the air, but I'm excited for it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I just want to see Rogers the Musical.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Kate Bishop, and I'm excited for them to show her off. And as a Young Avengers fan, who was sort of right there at that sweet spot when the Young Avengers first came about, I'm definitely excited to see them start coming together on the screen.
Yeah, it's super cool.
And I also saw quite a few references to Matt Fraction's Hawkeye run in that trailer. I mean, there's definitely Lucky the Pizza Dog in there, and
hopefully some of the Tracksuit Mafia.
Right? Can't wait to see more of them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much if they did do that, I don't know how much they're going to lean into the stuff from the book, but it would be nice to kind of to see them really just embrace it and try and do something kind of funny, but also very emotional as well.
Absolutely. And then the only other news piece I have, and this has been in the news for a little while, so maybe we should have talked about it earlier, but there's a bit of drama right now with Joe Bennett.
Oh yeah, I didn't know if we were going to talk about that, but yeah, it's some pretty nasty stuff.
Yeah, for those who haven't been paying attention to the news, there's some Joe Bennett has been doing some things that have been considered controversial, and Marvel has decided to cut ties with him. And I've only barely looked into the pieces, and I can say that, like, I get it. I'm totally on the side of Marvel choosing to cut ties based on these pieces that Joe Bennett has attached his name to. It comes with, as a bit of a bitter pill, as Immortal Hulk has definitely been one of the highlights of the year.
Oh yeah, it's unfortunate that I mean, I don't want to put the work over any kind of anti-Semitic imagery that he did. That obviously is far more important to address. But yeah, it is unfortunate someone like that has such nasty beliefs attached to him.
Yeah, and with that, Marvel is, because it's already finished, Marvel has already said that they will still be releasing the end of Immortal Hulk. So we will still be covering it here, especially since we don't want to divorce all of Al Ewing's hard work and the rest of the team's amazing work that went into that book. It's not all spoiled by Joe Bennett. But
The other thing, too, that's nice about it is awful that it happened in the first place, but kind of the silver lining of it is that he didn't have anything to do with the story elements, more so just interpreting the story in art. And art is subjective, and you are able to remove art from artists, whereas, like, writing, I feel like, usually has a lot more personal going into it. Like, you think of different famous artists over time, like Picasso and Van Gogh and stuff, like, their life doesn't really impact their work.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of informs what mental state they might have been in, but it doesn't actually change what you think of a painting or something like that.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. And the writer definitely has a bit more of, when you're reading something that was written by someone, a bit more of their worldview comes across than when it's just their art. So
Yeah.
I get what you're putting down.
So on that happy note,
All right.
Did we mention the Wolverine game, the trailer that came out? I don't remember.
No, we didn't. Yeah, at PlayStation's event a couple weeks ago. Probably not even two full weeks, but
yeah, no, at the PlayStation Showcase 2021, they and this was a little over a week ago, about 10 days ago. They released more of a teaser. I don't know if I can really call it a trailer, but basically announcing that that they would be releasing a Wolverine theme. Well, not Wolverine theme. Wolverine is the central character, but a Wolverine game for the PS5 from Insomniac Games. And I mean, the teaser looks really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously it doesn't show any gameplay or anything just yet, but it's a fun little teaser for people who are interested in a new game, and I'm definitely going to check it out.
Yeah, myself as well. I'm excited by that trailer. I'm excited by Insomniac at the helm. Their Spider-Man games, both Spider-Man and Miles Morales, have been
excellent.
Just so good.
Yeah.
And so Insomniac being at the helm of this one is really good. As much as I'm one of the only fans out there for Crystal Dynamics' Avengers game.
Yeah, you're really really in the minority on that one. All I've heard from people is supposedly how bad it is. I've not played a second of it, but I feel bad. I mean, I don't know. I'll have to check it out at some point.
I feel like the campaigns are all really enjoyable. Like, they feel really good. And then once you get to that, the game expects you to play it like Destiny, and that's where it becomes a write-off. But for a full-price game, I spent 15 hours as the Avengers blasting through a campaign and then eventually fighting MODOK and crazy villains like that. Not a lot of them, but I felt good. Tony feels good, Thor feels good, Cap feels good, Hulk feels good. And since the DLC have come out all free, Hawkeye, Kate Bishop, and now Black Panther, they're all dope characters to play as. And the Wakanda map is a lot of fun. The game's getting bigger, and they've promised that more content is going to keep coming out into next year. So I'm looking forward to it. But I am excited to see Crystal Dynamics not being at the helm of every Marvel game.
Yeah.
I still look forward to the team that's putting out the Guardians of the Galaxy game next month. Because I believe that's the team that made the Deus Ex games. And they're, once again, a slightly different team, and interested to see how they handle it.
Yeah, well, that actually did remind me, speaking of Guardians of the Galaxy, I have a bit of sad news, unfortunately, and that is that after the big, giant crossover event that they've been doing right now in Guardians of the Galaxy, the book will unfortunately be coming to its end after issue 18. It's a bit of a sudden one, but I think it was, it was kind of in the water, given that the book basically hadn't been solicited for 2-3 months at that point. And they didn't really put out any announcement for it. I checked and looked at the releases for next week and clicked on Guardians of the Galaxy, and it just said final issue under it. I was like, oh, there it is. So.
Oh, well, that's a heartbreaker.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess on the plus side, at least we got a really good book while we did, but it'll kind of be sad to see it go. I'm hoping they have something in the works coming up soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and because I've really enjoyed it, and especially with this new team, like the huge number of Guardians that they've had going on. Like, I thought it was a really cool thing for the Guardians to take on this sort of organizational approach. I wanted to see more of it, but
yeah, me too. But I guess the sales just weren't there.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now we can dive into our reviews for the week. Up first, we've got the Mighty Valkyries number 5. This is the final issue in the Mighty Valkyries series, or I guess mini-series. And this features the culmination of Jane and Valkyrie essentially going to Hell to face off with Hela and her wife for the kidnapping of the children that disappeared back in issue 1. There's a bit of a showdown and a little bit of some gods learning their immortal lessons. And Loki shows up to sort of push the needle forward on something that he's evidently working on, but he's mysterious as always. The art in this book is gorgeous, just like the rest of the series has been. Like, Mighty Valkyries absolutely looks amazing, and you get some really cool showdown, nice action panels in this final issue. I thought it was a good closure, though just a little... For everything it tried to do, it just still felt a little dry to me. I don't know. It's kind of a... it's not a very helpful descriptor. If you've been reading Mighty Valkyries, you're not going to be disappointed, but I wouldn't... With this, knowing this is the end, I wouldn't say Mighty Valkyries as a whole is a must-read miniseries. I'd probably close this one out with a 7.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. I thought it was kind of like a fun series. I was kind of a surprise fan of the original Valkyrie Jane Foster series that they did. I want to say 2018 or 2019. From originally it was Jason Aaron and Al Ewing, and then it was Jason Aaron and Torrin Grönbok who did this book as well. And it was a really fun series that kind of got cut short just because of COVID canceling a lot of books, but I was kind of glad that they brought it back, and this has been a satisfying miniseries, but I really can't say that it's anything special. It's just sort of there for me, and even if the art from I'm gonna mess up the name, so just forgive me, but what is it? Mattia de Ulis, something like that.
Yeah.
Sorry. My apologies if I can totally butcher that, but the art, like I said, like you said, the art has been really great and enjoyable in that sense. It's just, it's kind of really just been only an okay story. Has some fun moments, but nothing too memorable, really. So I ended up giving this one a 7.75 out of 10. I'd probably go back and reread the miniseries at some point, but I don't know if it's going to stay with me that much.
I tried reading this one. I think just trying to figure out where we were was difficult, because it opens with the explanation of, like, to catch me up, and I was like, okay. But then I didn't know that very first page, it, like, opens with a word that's not Midgard, it's not Asgard, it's a different guard. But then it jumps into hell, and I was like, wait, what happened? Can we go back? Who was that? So just for me coming in with like very like zero prior knowledge, it was hard to get into, and I also tried to read it while I was laying down and fell asleep, so I didn't end up finishing this one. And I don't think that's to say anything bad for the writing or the art or anything like that. I honestly just think that it was a lot to try and break down and decipher and figure out what was going on, because I don't have that prior knowledge. But I would be interested in starting this one over, probably, like starting at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. I would say this comic, as a miniseries, probably doesn't have a lot of baggage that's rooted in too many other comics. It might require some passing familiarity with Jane Foster's journey that I would hope, give you on that first page summary in Mighty Valkyries #1. But if you wanted to just pick up 5 comics about Jane Foster, maybe leading up to Love and Thunder, this might be a good fit. All right. Moving on to our next comic, Iron Man #12. I'll hand it over to Jess for this one.
So we see Iron Man and Avro X infiltrating the world ship to take down Korvac. Avro and Iron Man talk about Manitoba, Canada, while being attacked by the ship's many built-in defenses. We'll have to ask Kirk what that's like, living in Manitoba. They run into Korvac and his cronies, resulting in devastation and sadness, before we cut to Tony's rescue squad coming to save him in the nick of time in a foolhardy plan. So, Kirk, living in Manitoba, is it the stabbing capital of Canada?
Yeah,
what's that like?
I lived from the age of, I want to say 5 to 12 in the stabbing capital of Canada that is mentioned in this book. And yeah, Winnipeg's great. It's cold as all heck. And it's like a pretty old city. It like
as far as Canada's concerned, yeah.
Well, no, I just mean like cities. There are cities the same age that have spent more money updating their buildings.
Oh, I see.
A lot of the buildings you pass in Winnipeg are like, it's been a while since they've renovated. But that's not really related to this issue. And they spent some time talking about Churchill, which is in the deep north of Manitoba that I have never been to.
Yeah.
But the fun fact that he drops about having curfews to prevent kids from getting eaten, that's real. I've heard about that.
Yeah,
my mom... Jeez.
My mom...
Oh,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
My mom grew up in Thompson, Manitoba, which is really close to Churchill, very far north. And she told me a story once about how on Halloween, everyone leaves their cars unlocked so that kids walking around, if they run into a polar bear, can hop into a car and not get eaten. It was just common practice that people would leave their vehicles unlocked on Halloween so that if anything happened, a kid wouldn't have to run home. They'd just have to hop in the closest vehicle.
But Iron Man.
So back to the issue.
Yeah.
I didn't know who Avro X was, but I thought that him and Iron Man's talking and kind of building that connection, it felt like Tony's been through a lot just because he was actually being personable. I was surprised at how much I like this, because I don't really like Iron Man movies or the personality that Tony Stark tends to exude of being smarter and better than everyone else. But it felt like he's really been like throwing himself into the trenches in this one, and that he's kind of gotten really tired. So I gave it a 7 out of 10 because I actually am interested in picking up the next one, and I definitely didn't expect that.
Yeah, this series is we have been covering it. I mean, I think pretty much since it came out, and it has been such a weird one for me because it always teeters the line for me between being really interesting and, I don't know, kind of dull for me, and I never like, I don't know, I never have the right score to give this book. I think when we first started covering it, I would just kind of give it a question mark out of 10 because I was like, I think there are things that I like, but there are some things that I don't really like, and I think that's mostly just the writing. It never lands in a full way for me where I can't say I fully like it or fully hate it. So I don't know. Like I've been reading this book for 12 issues and I cannot score it. It's been a year and I still can't score it. So this book still gets a question mark out of 10 for me. Like there are things that I think are really cool, and there are things that are just kind of yeah, sure, and that's all I got. I'm sorry. I wish I could be more precise about this book, but it's so bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
But I also did not know about Avro X, and I think that's cool. I didn't know Canada had an Iron Man, so that's neat for them, I suppose.
Yeah, this book was... I don't know. The Iron Man series, I've been like... It just keeps missing exactly where I want it to sit, but only just. I've not been a fan of how Tony's been written in this series to date, really. Mm-hmm. I found Tony doing his own thing. Like, there was a couple panels where they were talking about Canada, which I swear I liked for more reasons other than they were just talking about Canada. But it actually felt...
from Canada.
Yeah, we might be biased.
But it actually felt like Avro and Iron Man were talking. Mm-hmm. Tony was like, oh, hey, where are you from? Like, it was very much... You see in those, like, war movies where, like, a kid gets shot, and to, like, help him focus, one of the vets starts saying, like, tell me about your hometown. Got a sweetie? Like, get you talking about stuff. So that's where Tony felt personable. But that only lasted for, like, 2 pages.
That's true.
The rest of it, Tony was literally just running around Galactus's ship, literally singing, like, just songs.
Oh, I assume that his suit was playing music.
That's equally likely. It wasn't actually clear to me.
Oh, okay.
But he was sort of kind of ignoring his co-star, which has been sort of the theme with this series, is that they put some really interesting characters on his ship that have been trying to help him for like 5 issues now. And literally, we have cut back for 5 issues to that ship of them trying to help Iron Man.
Oh, yeah.
And it's been Gargoyle, Misty Knight, Scarlet Spider, and Frogman sitting with their seatbelts on in the back seat.
Yeah, they've been on this chase forever.
Forever! Like, we're not doing anything with these co-stars. Hellcat and War Machine are in the cockpit bickering slightly, but we're just not getting anything from these people that they're putting around Tony. And so I just feel like it's Tony ignoring everyone in his life, again, always. Like, that's the theme with Tony.
That makes a lot more sense. I didn't have that baggage. If this was the only time he had been doing that, it makes sense that he just shot off ahead of them and they're now catching up at the end of this issue, but that's very different.
Well, and that brings me to the thing that I really dislike the most about this part of the run, is Korvac does not... I don't care about him. His plot was interesting in 1 issue, and then like it went nowhere for 3 issues, and then it got interesting again for it teeters between him like nattering about it and then like pushing the needle forward a bit. But the absolute like most annoying piece is a few issues ago when they were still in chase mode, Tony got zapped away to another planet where he meets Avro X, which was cool and all. And then he ends up in a fight with Stiltman there, which was whatever. Like, it was a whole random aside. But then the way that Tony got out of it and the way that Tony beat them to Galactus's ship is because the Living Tribunal, a.k.a. like the most god of God, showed up and said, Tony, we need your help. I'm going to teleport you to the place where the story is happening. Because the writers...
Deus Ex Machina?
Couldn't... They literally put actual God in the story to teleport Tony to Galactus's ship at the end of the last issue. Because... And literally everyone keeps commenting, how did Tony beat us here? How did Tony beat us here?
Yeah.
Korvac's like, you beat me here? Huh? It's like... Yeah, because the writers just wedged that in.
Or I guess that's Deus Ex Deus? I don't know.
God in the actual literal God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. This book is fine. It's enjoyable. The dialogue is well written. It just keeps missing for me. The co-stars aren't quite there. The villain's not quite there. And every once in a while, they'll take Tony to a fight with Stiltman that they can't figure out how to get him out of.
So it's like the actual Iron Man movies.
So I gave this one a very generous 7 out of 10, but if you talk to me on a bad day, it wouldn't be that high.
Yeah, that is respectable. At least you're able to come to some kind of conclusion about this book. I still have not, and it's been a year. And yet I still keep coming back, so at least the book has that going for it.
Yeah, it hasn't pissed me off enough to be like, screw it, Brandon, you can cover number 13. Like, I'm still going to read it. Like,
yeah, that's the thing. Like it comes out, and I'm like, yeah, I'll read it, just to kind of see what's going on. So it's not. Yeah, I guess it's a strength. It is not so boring or so off the rails that I'm like, I don't even want to deal with this anymore.
Mm-hmm. All right, next on our list is Marauders number 24. This one features a previous frenemy of Emma Frost coming to planet Arakko to deal with a debt that they've left unpaid, and demanding an audience with her. So Emma and Kate go on a little bit of journey to Arakko, where we get to see, now that it has been fully terraformed, Arakko is bustling. It's a full-on Star Wars planet.
Yeah.
We've got gun vendors selling blasters to hordes of Arakko mutants. Iraqi? I'm not sure.
I think Iraqi. I think they're called the Iraqi people.
Mm-hmm.
And the planet is Arakko. And they meet with him. They go through, let's call it negotiations. And, of course, because the White Queen and the Red Queen are there, somehow, for no reason, the Black King just happens to be in the same bar as them.
Of course.
And then they work a little bit, and there's a pretty suspenseful ending that I won't spoil here, because it doesn't really impact the overall scope of whether or not this comic was enjoyable. I've always been a fan of the Marauders series. I like the writing, and really it's lately transformed. I say lately as if this is new, really into a vehicle for conversations between Kate and Emma, with the occasional brilliant writing of characters like Iceman and Pyro popping in on the sidelines.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've been really enjoying the writing between Kate and Emma Frost as they go through this, and this transition of Kate Pryde's character all throughout the Marauders story has been a journey that I'm still quite interested in. This is a bit of a filler issue, so as much as I like the writing, I can't say like anything huge, action-packed, or like a major turning point happens. But it does end with teasing another mutant as well showing up at the X-Men headquarters in New York. So keep an eye on that.
Someone that had been teased in some of the previous issues, I might add.
Yeah. So I gave this one a 7.8, which, again, I'm probably in a generous mood today. Like, this one's probably higher than I needed to rate it, but I'm enjoying my time with my Marauders, and maybe that's coloring my perceptions.
I actually scored this one a little bit better than I have been scoring previous issues of Marauders, just because the series, for me, started really, really strong. It was probably like my second favorite title to come out of Dawn of X. And then it sort of started to slip for me. Then it came back up again. We were like right before Ten of Swords. Came down a little bit, and then I was kind of drawn back in as they were wrapping up some stuff in Madripoor. But I think the last issue was just kind of okay for me, because as I remember, it was mostly just a flashback issue with well, if I say it, it's going to spoil something. But anyway, all you need to know is it's like a flashback issue. The last one that I remember... Oh, well, actually, I think that might have been 22. And then the more recent one was with Banshee. But yeah, it had kind of been a little shaky for the last two issues, I felt. But this one I thought was really good, and definitely pulled me back in. And the art from Phil Noto is just great, as usual. He's just really phenomenal at doing these emotions and action scenes. Although I do have one small critique, and it's really just the way that Emma shows her like diamond form or secondary mutation, because I mean I know that Phil is probably doing the best job that he can, but it kind of looks like PS1 graphics, and I don't mean that in a good way. Like if you ever played like old like Tomb Raider or like Crash Bandicoot, and you've seen like some of the atmosphere graphics, it looks like that, and it was just really off-putting. Just every time she was like in frame with the diamond skin, but other than that, I had no problem with it. I thought it was a pretty solid issue overall, so I'm hoping that the rest of them can kind of maintain this level of quality moving forward. So I actually give this one an 8.25 out of 10.
I was very interested in Araco, because this is my first introduction to it. I especially liked Iceman walking off the plane and being like, yo, y'all see my planet? And Pyro having none of it. But once it got to Emma and Kate, I don't really have any attachment to either of those characters, so I wasn't as interested. And then I was intrigued by the ending, but more so just in a confused way. Like, I know that with Krakoa, they've got ways to get out of stuff, worst case scenario if someone died, but I just don't... I don't understand the way that we left things in space before jumping back to New York. Like, it felt like it was very, like, and as you can see, this thing is about to happen, and we're not going to tell you about it, we're going to move on, and I'm like, what? And then I didn't have any attachment to New York. I didn't know that it had been foreshadowed. I don't know who that character is, so I assume that I will enjoy the next one more. So yeah, for me, I gave this one, like, a 6 out of 10, like... I would probably recommend Marauders to other people. For me, I think I need more info for it to really be like hook, line, and sinker.
Awesome. All right. And now I'll pass it over to Brandon for Last Annihilation Black Panther.
All right, my pleasure. 1 second. So yeah, this is Black Panther. Technically Last Annihilation Wakanda, but this is the issue that focuses on Black Panther, sort of leading the charge of the the intergalactic empire of Wakanda against the recently dominating forces of Dormammu, and sort of taking charge, leading the army, and working with a very interesting but certainly unique group of people, sort of combating the forces, including M'Baku, but not the M'Baku man-ape from Wakanda, a person who's taken his namesake to, basically inspire others, and I guess he's described as the rebel leader from the Intergalactic Empire. Mm-hmm. I remember that run was going on, but I wasn't reading too much of it, so I'm not super familiar on the Intergalactic Empire of Wakanda. But alongside him, of course, is also Shuri, as well as Manifold, who I guess has taken a break from being in Sword and also fighting the Hordes to just kind of hang with them for a little bit. But yeah, it's... overall, it's a pretty cool issue. They team up with the Imperial Guard, the Shi'ar Imperial Guard as well, and there's a lot of cool interactions between them. And it's always fun to see the Imperial Guard as they're there, but really it's just kind of meant to show the strength and intervention of the Intergalactic Empire of Wakanda and how they're able to stand their ground against some of Dormammu's mindless ones, which I thought was really cool. So I won't say it's like an outstanding issue or even super memorable, but as part of this event, I thought it was, solid enough, and as a contributing chapter to the overarching story, it does its job, as like, if you just want to say like, hey, what is the Intergalactic Empire of Wakanda up to in the middle of this, great cosmic invasion? Well, here you go. Here's your answer. So, it's just kind of fine for that reason. Nothing too great, but nothing too bad. I really like the art. I thought it just showed a lot of the, large scale action really, really well. And I love this artist's rendition of the Imperial Guard. I just thought it was really cool, especially Smasher and Guardian. They just look super cool. Smasher, Guardian, and Deathbird, actually, even though she's not like in a ton of panels, but all of them were just really cool. Or is it Guardian or Gladiator? No, Gladiator.
It's Gladiator.
Yeah, Gladiator. I know they're called like Super Guardians. It just like confused it for a second. Anyway, but yeah, I thought the artist did a really good job. It's just kind of a solid story, nothing special. Works in line with the whole Last Annihilation stuff. So yeah, I would probably give this one an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I enjoyed my time with this one. It was good. It did a little bit more time on Wakanda, on Black Panther, and on M'Baku taking up a bit more responsibility in the intergalactic empire of Wakanda.
Yeah.
And so with that, I enjoyed it. There's even a few good stabs at humor in this book.
Yes.
I love the comment they make about Vibraxis. I wasn't expecting to have a little bit of an actual out loud chortle when I read that, but I did. It was funny, so I recommend checking that out. Yeah, I gave this one a 7.8 out of 10.
Nice.
All right. Next, we have Kang the Conqueror number 2. This one continues the Kang the Conqueror series in showing a young Kang sort of fumbling through his some of Kang's moments. In issue 1, he was trained by Kang. In issue 2, he serves as the Scarlet Centurion in Ramatut's army, and it really just shows him falling in love with Ravonna again, of all people. And Ravonna is a Moon Knight who is opposed to Ramatut. She's an avatar of Khonshu in this iteration, which is cool, but doesn't really go anywhere super exciting. And then this book ends with, this book also contains, a bit of him creating the Iron Lad persona. So it looks like this might be the Iron Lad Kang, like a journey that created the Iron Lad who would start the Young Avengers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was wondering how they were gonna, or I was wondering how they might tie that in. I actually didn't get to read this issue, but.
Mm-hmm. And it teases at the end that this young Kang is still looking for active ways to oppose the old Kang. Honestly, though, this book is really just a smattering of Kang's history. So if you watched Loki, and at the end everyone started talking about, oh my god, Kang's going to be in the MCU, Kang. This book looks like it's shaping up to be a 5-part series that's covering a lot of the famous Kangs. We've already seen 4 different iterations of Kang in these 2 issues. And they've been famous ones. So I'm assuming that wherever he goes in the next 3 issues is going to be different versions of Kang, so that people get used to trying to tell apart the infinite Kangs.
Yeah.
But it was fine. I gave it a 6.5. I'm going to stop belaboring it. All right. Moving on to Fantastic Four Life Story number 4. I'll pass that one over to Jess.
So, after the events of the 80s, the Fantastic Four is reeling from the death of Johnny Storm and trying to overcome all of the trauma that comes with that, and the knowledge that Galactus is on the way to destroy Earth. I at first thought that I wouldn't really like this comic because it's trying to tell a whole decade in one issue. So it speeds through and focuses on like Ben, and he tries to date, and he eventually does find someone that he's interested in, and they get along really well. And he reveals a hard part of his past from the Korean War. then the team goes out to space to meet Galactus before he's able to reach the planet. That Reed has set up this defensive mechanism to stop them. But it turns out that it's actually the Silver Surfer who shows up and quickly thwarts that defense mechanism by just running through it and destroys it in a matter of seconds. Ben tries to fight him and also loses, so then Silver Surfer lands on Earth to announce when Galactus will be here, which is in another 10 years, and then he takes off. I thought it was, like, super sweet, well-crafted kind of, like, episode of their lives. It really did focus on Ben, and then a little bit of Sue and Reed's son getting married. Yeah, I was surprised. I think that's honestly, like, the best way for me to give it a good score is if I'm surprised. Like, if I go into it expecting it to be awful and it's cute or just has an element that I wasn't expecting. So I gave this one, like, a 7.5 out of 10. Like, I definitely would read the next one because they did this one so well. I don't know if I would have liked all of them leading up to it because I'm not, like, a Fantastic Four super fan and I don't really care about the history of it. Like, the fact that they're celebrating 60 years. This isn't the anniversary issue, but I don't really have any attachment to that, again, because I'm very new to comics. What did you guys
my
think?
Heart.
I know.
I love the Fantastic Four, so
okay.
I just no, it's but that is entirely because the Fantastic Four was definitely something that I grew up with, so there's a lot of nostalgia for it. That was kind of the first comics that I really read, like superhero comics, I would say, were the Marvel Masterworks that I begged my mom to pick up at Barnes and Noble, and I just read them over and over and over again. So I'd have a soft spot for the old FF. So I'm probably more biased with that.
No, that's totally fair, and I'm sure you and Kirk will end up having to come to blows when the movie comes out, but whatever Marvel ends up doing, because Kirk is on the opposite side of that fence.
I know. So he tells me.
No. I unfortunately, this is a bad week for me to actually make this claim, but at Brandon's behest, I've been trying to give Reed Richards another shot. It's just all the comics, because I didn't read a lot of Fantastic Four growing up, and the ones that they featured in always chose to feature Reed at his worst.
This is often, unfortunately.
Yeah, and so it really drilled home this, like, my young comic self was just kind of, like, stumped by why the Fantastic Four was a thing.
Why it was popular.
Because every time I got to meet them, their leader was a dick. And
you just go into the corner and cry.
But that isn't to say that he always has been. Like, I've been giving them more and more of a fair shake. Unfortunately, I didn't get to read Life Story this week. I ran out of time. So I'm going to pass it over to Brandon to say what he felt. But I swear, I've been trying to not be so hard on Reed and the gang. And I do actually like the rest of the gang quite a bit better. And this run of the Fantastic Four, I've enjoyed more with Valeria and Franklin being part of it. So not in Life Story, but I have been.
Yeah.
I've been easing my way back into it. It's good. It's good. I'm not being so hard on them, I swear.
No, I thought it was a really fun issue, especially kind of choosing to focus on Ben Grimm in the 90s, and him meeting Alicia was really cute and sweet, and I was wondering when they were going to find a way to fold her in, if it wasn't going to be in the 60s or 70s, so that was just really nice to see. I thought there was definitely an interesting moment where they're getting ready to go to Johnny Storm's wedding, I guess, and we have a brief moment where we actually see Reed's physical age, and I'd been wondering about that, like how have they been looking so young, and it's been almost 20 years at this point, and I guess Reed and maybe some of the others have as well, but they've kind of been using their powers to preserve the age where they first got their powers, so it looks like they're kind of the same. And I thought that was an interesting moment, just really highlighting that they are aging. It has been a while, but outside of that, I think that was cool. The overarching Galactus story that they have been really alluding towards is interesting, but I find myself more interested in the you know, kind of like average daily life of the Fantastic Four than any of the Galactus stuff, which probably sounds sacrilegious as a Fantastic Four fan, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like I've seen the Galactus story a lot, and I don't have that much interest in seeing this take on it. I mean, maybe they'll deliver something really cool. They tried to do kind of an interesting approach in the first issue, but I just didn't care that much. But I still enjoyed it. I still had a fun time, and I really dug the art from Shani Sasuke as well. So I gave this one an 8 out of 10.
Awesome. Next on our list is Web of Spider-Man number 5. This is the conclusion to the Web of Spider-Man series, or mini-series. And this one features them finally coming to blows with Mendelstrom.
Cygob?
He has created a cyborg goblin body for himself, and he has used his technology and a combination of things at the Louvre, the museum in France, the Louvre, and he wants to steal the brains of the kids of Web, and these brainy kids defeat him. And that's it. That's the book. Which is also kind of the series. This series is outside of the current canon in most regards. This is obviously not the Peter Parker who's currently embroiled in Sinister War, and it's just a group of them as teenagers and kids, genius kids, working in Iron Man's scholarship program to develop new tech. I'm not 100% sure on... They haven't really explained like whether this is like an internship or a job or if replacement for school. Like they're really...
After school.
Yeah, there's really no context for this, aside from the fact that they can just go to France.
Yeah.
To chase down Goblin. Or not Goblin, Cygob, or Mendelstrom, whoever.
Yeah.
And then Amadeus Cho showed up last issue, and he wasn't really in the first 3. And I'm always a big fan of Amadeus, but he really just shows up in this one to be just like another smart young person who...
Has muscle.
Just shows up for the final fight. Like he was never really included in Web, but now he's just part of Web. So much so that when everything ends with its tied up nice little bow and there's a photo of the gang, he's just part of the gang now. Which cool, yeah, I love Amadeus, but I don't know. This book didn't do anything particularly well. I don't know. I gave it a 6. It's fine, and if you're looking for a Spider-Man miniseries to buy for, like, a kid, like, probably age 8 or 10, and you don't want them to have to, like, figure out any drama, this is Peter Parker trying to figure out when he can change into Spider-Man without anyone seeing him. This is a series with other smart characters that you might get questions about. They might say, who's Squirrel Girl? Who's Moon Girl? They might ask about the other characters in Web, but they don't have comics. Yeah, it's fine. I don't know. I'm gonna be hard on the series. It's them taking Spider-Man again to just his own story outside the current canon, which sometimes works, but I feel like that's the type of stuff that really encourages people to be jaded with, like, trying to get into comics. When there's 2 Spider-Man comics released 1 week after the other, and one of them's just not even in the canon, I don't think that's a good play, but maybe I'm just too hard on it. I don't know.
That does seem a little weird.
So last time I read this, I rated it very poorly. So we're back again. I don't like this series, because my least favorite parts about Peter Parker are teenager, I need to hide my identity from everyone, which is not a smart play, especially as someone who lied as a teenager to parents. Like, one, it just adds more stress to your life. 2, like, yes, having a secret from, like, the majority of people makes sense. I'm not saying he needs to reveal his identity like Tony Stark, but
when you can't even, like, tell the other superhero people that you're currently in, like, this internship with that you're Spider-Man. Also, they're all so smart. How do they not realize that they lost Peter, gained Spidey? They're all just sitting there like, huh, where'd Peter go? And Spidey's like, I'll call him. Guys, your IQs have to be better than this. Otherwise, I don't believe that you're actually smart. Yeah, and also, like, weaponizing the Louvre pyramid to be a photon laser beam. What?
It's a photon recombinator or something like that.
Ugh.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't even know science, and I know that's not right. That's not how it works. I will say, though, that, like Kirk said, if I knew any 6 to 13-year-olds, I'd give them this comic. And I also will give, like, a teeny tiny little, like, award. There was an excellent message that Squirrel Girl said. She said, it's not about being smart, it's about being curious, asking questions, and studying what you learn. And that, I think, is a really good message for kids. Again, that's why I would give this to kids. But me as an adult, I'm like, 3 out of 10, guys. Don't waste your time. It's not gonna do anything. It's boring for, like, us. Like, it doesn't check out. It doesn't make sense. But if I was a kid, I would be like, heck yeah, they're in Paris. This is cool. What's that? What's the Louvre? What's this pyramid thing? Ooh. Like, there are things that if I didn't know things about the world and about Spider-Man and all these different things, I would be interested in. But I'm not. I can Google stuff. I have my own phone. So I don't like it. Plus, there was an error on a page where it seemed as though the first 2 lines of the text box should have been removed during editing, but it still made it to final print because the sentence didn't make any sense. So, I just didn't like it.
I did not even read this issue, so I have no context for any of this, but based on all I've heard so far, I don't think I'd read this issue I don't think I'd read this series since, like, the first issue, and I probably won't be coming back based on all the feedback it's gotten so far.
Yeah, I think there's a market for this comic, but I honestly don't know that the market for this comic is comic readers. I think it's a great, like, gift to a kid if you don't know what to get them, and maybe they'll become a comic book reader later. Like,
and, like, I'm surprised actually that Marvel Comics doesn't do that they don't have a, like, kids corner of the week or something, because I think that would be cool if they started, like, here's our, like, weekly releases, and in the kids corner, Web of Spider-Man, like, so that it's very clear with the way that it's titled and on the cover that adults wouldn't waste their time or money. I'm just, that would be my recommendation, because I think it's good to have comics for kids. Like, I very much enjoy graphic novels. Like, there are mediums for everyone, and some people learn better with pictures, and comics is that medium where it is more adult than, like, children's books, but it's still easy to digest.
Yeah, well, and I've run into that criticism before where, like, I should have been paying more attention, but when we reviewed, this is going back a little bit ways, Thor and Loki's Double Trouble, it was essentially a children's book series as a comic book about Thor and Loki getting into antics around Asgard. Loki turns into a horse and tells Thor, you know, if you were a real tough guy, I bet you could steal this thing. Like, just generic children's book antics. And when I picked it up, I didn't know that. I didn't Google anything beforehand. I didn't know that Double Trouble was something Marvel had done before that was specifically, like, a children's book. Because that's what this vibed on really hard. And them not being upfront about that led me to, like, when I got to the end of it, I was like, what's the point of this? Like, I had to go back in my head and justify that, like, okay, this obviously isn't aimed at me, but why doesn't it say anywhere else? Why doesn't it signal who it's aimed at?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have, like, a logo that says, like, Marvel Kids or Marvel something. I don't know. All right. Jess, I'm going to hand it over to you for Black Widow number 11.
So we open this comic with the Widows having taken down, or tried to take down, Apogee. They get everybody but he gets away. So Yelena is overseeing Anya and Lucy doing some sparring. Natasha comes in very quickly and says, "Okay, I gotta go." And Yelena pulls her aside and says, "Yo, if this is gonna be a partnership, I need more info." And she goes, "Fine." So Natasha goes to a cobbler to get some spy stuff and give him some new requests. She wants to try and find her husband and son, and he asks if she's sure, and she said, "Yep." He gives her a lead for where to find Apogee. He sends her to, as he said, some creepy Cirque du Soleil meets old-timey freak show twins. And she takes Elena along to that one. And Lucy and Anya seem to look on in, like, lovingly horny affection because they're all dressed up to go to this very fancy Cirque du Soleil type show. So they meet with the twins. The twins are super creepy. I thought it was really cool. They have this fight scene, which is really cool. Natasha and Yelena are able to outsmart them and get more information about where to go next for Apogee at the Golden Gate Gala, which we'll see next issue. It was nice for me to see Natasha bending her walls to let Yelena in. We get some of the same older sister relationship that there was in the movie that just came out in July, so it was familiar, but still fun. It was nothing revolutionary, but I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to the next one. So I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Nice, yeah. I thought this issue was a fine issue. It was a filler issue. Like, it was between 2 points of action. Like, we just wrapped up the Apogee thing, and then this is them getting the piece of info they need to go and actually really wrap up the Apogee thing. Which was cool. I like the cast that they have in this one. Anya, Lucy, Natasha, and Yelena. They have a cool vibe together, but I don't know. I think one of the things that doesn't sit as wonderfully with me in this comic as I want it to is they have this cool little team together that I want to see do things, and I want to see them grow and go places. So it bums me out to see that Natasha, and to a lesser extent, but I'm sure we'll see more of it later, Yelena's intuition is to put up walls and leave groups. Like, there's just like that undertone of like, doesn't matter what this team becomes, don't get attached. And maybe that's just me reading too much into my history with Widow and like the way she's acting, but she always kind of does that. So it's like, cool, you having these two badass apprentices or whatever's going on that you're getting them to spar, but you're trying to find your parents, you're trying to cut Yelena out. Like, nah, am I going to be even reading about them next year? Like, I don't know. And that's me bringing my own baggage to it. But because I can just never tell whether something in Natasha's life is going to stay. Because after all, not too long ago, she had an actual husband and an actual son.
Yeah, and they were relocated, I guess.
Yeah, so I gave this one a 7. I'm excited to read the arc, but it's I want more for Natasha. What about you, Brandon?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was solid. I really dug the art. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't have a ton to say about this one. I mean, I think it had some interesting stuff, and certainly I'm interested to see where they're going with the Apogee thing. But I don't know. It was. I don't feel like it really hooked me in a way, and it's kind of unfortunate. I do kind of like the, I guess, team that Natasha has built for herself with Yelena and Anya, Corazon, the Spider Girl. I really don't know why she's here, like in a Black Widow book, but I'm not really complaining. She's a fun character. But yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of okay. So I gave this one a 7.5. I didn't hate it, but I don't know that I'm hooked. I'm just not hooked.
Fair enough. All right, and for our last comic on the speed round, the Fantastic Four number 35 60-year anniversary. Brandon, I'll pop it over to you.
Yeah, sure. The Fantastic Four make their big triumphant return to the Baxter Building, the thing that people I guess had wanted from the start of them finally coming back after Secret Wars. But largely this issue focuses on Kang having his little magical mystery tour through time with the Fantastic Four, touching on different eras of the Fantastic Four, some very notable ones, of course, the classic 60s era Fantastic Four, the Byrne era Fantastic Four, even the 90s era Fantastic Four with that horrible costume for Sue Storm, where she's in like a one piece, like a bathing suit one piece, and a really fun reference to the Hickman Fantastic Four from a couple of years ago, and they even had their Future Foundation suits like right after Johnny Storm makes his return, and that was a lot of fun to see. So it was just a really kind of cool book to see Kang kind of touching on all these different eras. And I mean, I understand why Kang is getting the big push right now, but I thought it was at least kind of a cool way to fold it in, and it all sort of wraps up in the present with all of the iterations of the Fantastic Four facing off against the different iterations of Kangs, or the variants as they call them, and sort of just wrapping it up while also just kind of having a fun and enjoyable tale of the Fantastic Four with a bit of a major revelation at the end regarding I don't know how much I should spoil, but let's just say the revelation of a new family member for Reed Richards that should create an interesting dynamic, at least. I don't know. I'm kind of mixed on books that have been doing that recently. I just feel like that's become such a trope recently, of the long lost sibling that miraculously returns. I mean, over on the DC show, we have that with Nightwing going on right now. In Shang-Chi, we have that going on with what's her name, Sister Dagger, and it just feels like, I don't know, like at this point it just sort of feels like a very lazy story mechanic, where you just kind of drudge up another family member when you need to add someone interesting to the cast because you're kind of running out of ideas. And I get the sense that that's kind of where we're going. But we'll see, I guess. I thought it was a fun, like the main story, that not including the last page reveal, the main part of the story was a lot of fun. Just touching on the different eras of Fantastic Four and all that stuff. And as a huge fan of the Fantastic Four, it's always nice to see these different eras, get recognized and acknowledged. In addition to the main story, there were 2 backup stories. I did not get a chance to read them, but I mean, they look pretty cool. I know one is from Mark Waid, who had a really great run on Fantastic Four in the early 2000s. So hopefully when I get some more time, I'll actually get to read that story. But overall, I did enjoy the main story, and I'm hopeful that some of these story elements will continue to be interesting. But on the whole, this run of Fantastic Four has not been the best, in my opinion. It has had its moments, but really hasn't been that memorable. So as an anniversary issue, it was a fun way to tie a lot of the history together, but I do wish that I could say more nice things about this run overall. So I ended up giving this particular issue an 8 out of 10, but I do hope the run kind of picks up moving forward.
Yeah, I liked this as a good turning point after the Wedding of Doom arc that we've got. The main story in this one I quite enjoyed. I didn't read any of the secondary stories in this one, but I highly recommend people check it out. They put a lot into this 60th anniversary issue, and there's a lot of good stuff in it. I just didn't have the time myself to cover it all. But the main story was really good, and there was a lot of fun references to some comic history in there. So I gave it a 7.5 out of 10.
I didn't really read the whole thing. I just kind of flipped through to see what was in it, how much of it was one issue or another. And then my eye was drawn by the second one. It's very short. It's 2 pages. It's called Some Family Time. It was by Jason Liu. And it's, again, a very short 2-page. They just, like, have a fight and talk about family time. But the thing that I really liked about it was once they all change out of their street clothes, basically, then there's these 4 different colored and styled fists to represent the 4 members. And the fists point in the direction that the characters go into the next panels, including across the page. So, like, at the beginning, Thing and Johnny go off to do one thing while Sue and Reed talk about how to, like, approach this other part. So the red and the orange fist fly off to the left. Or right, I guess, while the blue fists go down and they're having this whole thing. And it was very cool, and, like, even across the page, across the gap, I mean, you see, like, the movement through the panels, which I thought was, like, a really cool thing to do. I had never seen anything like that. So yeah, I definitely think if you're a fan of the Fantastic Four, this anthology kind of book for an anniversary, it was very cool, and I assume that having more, like, references to the history of Fantastic Four, it would make a lot more sense and homage, I guess.
Yeah.
There's definitely, like, a lot of context needed if you really want to appreciate some of the history references. Otherwise, it'd probably feel a little weird.
All right. So now we're just going to take a short commercial break before we dive into the soapbox.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Now, back to our program.
So now we're at our soapbox segment, just a few comics that we wanted to spend a bit more time on than in our speed round. And we're going to start that off with X-Men Trial of Magneto #2. This comes to us from writer Leah Williams with art by Lucas Werneck, color by Edgar Delgado, and lettering by Clayton Cowles. This one continues Magneto's and some of the relatives of Wanda's grief over the death of the Scarlet Witch, as well as we get to see some of the investigative attempts both of X-Factor trying to track down who might have killed Wanda, and how or how not it might have been Magneto. As well, we get to see a few glimpses of Xavier using some questionable methods with Hope to try and get the information from Magneto's mind on whether or not he did it. And there's a lot going on there. Meanwhile, the Avengers visit Krakoa to try and recover Wanda's body, and we get to see potentially what I might call the biggest, like, signal light that the mutants are still not being 100% above board where they should be, in that they're using massive amounts of illusion to essentially dupe the Avengers, completely concealing Arbor Magna from them using the power of the Cuckoos. We do get to see Tony trying to flirt with Emma Frost, which, I mean, who wouldn't?
But failing completely.
Gotta shoot your shot.
And then with this one, it culminates in a big showdown between Hope waking up Magneto and telling him, do not let the Avengers take Wanda's body. And so he goes out and he throws down and he fights a good old-fashioned Magneto fight, which we haven't seen a lot of in the Krakoan age. Aside from Empire, I don't know if we've seen Magneto rise up and really just master of magnetism a big group of heroes.
No, not like that. It's really only been for the big moments. Like you said, during Empire, during during Planet Size X-Men, of course, where he helps terraform the planet. But yeah, no, not a ton of huge Magneto moments. So
Yeah, and so this one culminates with a very large spoiler that I feel like we have to talk about because like I think it's a pretty big deal. So I'm gonna stop right here and briefly say that if you don't want to be spoiled on Trial of Magneto, I think it's a pretty good book. And if you don't want to be spoiled, just skip ahead a hot minute or 2 or 10 or something. But all right, spoilers are starting now. Wanda comes back middle of this fight and says, "All right, everyone, calm your shit," and just immediately goes to macking on Vision.
yeah, bit of a strange twist.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, before I go into full spinning my tires on like theory and stuff like that, what did you guys think of this book?
This was like, I mean, this series, it's so funny. I had actually planned to skip this series. I mean, I didn't know if we were going to go into too much detail, but I kind of dropped off of X Factor, and, you know, I wasn't as interested in it. So I was kind of like, Trial of Magneto, whatever. But the first issue just really impressed me, and I think the second issue was even better. I think it really just deepened the mystery of what's going on with Wanda. But even more than that, it's also kind of digging into, well, this whole problem occurred on Krakoa. What do we do about it? You know, obviously we have to call the Avengers and all these other people, but there's so much more that a death like this triggers that, you know, we're not even fully equipped on how to handle it, and there's just so much going on that I find fascinating, and it's just really well presented and really well written so far. So I'm really into it. This is, I think, probably my favorite issue this week. And I gave it an 8.5 out of 10.
I hadn't read the first one. I knew that Kirk really liked it, so I was curious if jumping into the second one I'd have lots of questions. But I just wanted to read to you my notes, because they're like limerick, basically. So my notes are, so Wanda is dead. Great, I hate it. Drama, drama, drama. The fuck? The fuck? What? Give me more! So, Wanda is probably like my favorite Avenger from my exposure to her in the MCU. And WandaVision, like, I've wanted to cosplay as her since Age of Ultron, but trying to find a red long leather jacket in my size is very expensive. But yeah, I just was super bummed. I was like, ugh, why do I even want to read this? She's not even here. This is stupid. But then she came back, so it felt like the universe was like, you know what? I don't want to punish Jessica for finally reading some comics. Let's bring her back. So I gave this a 10 out of 10 because it left me wanting more, and that's all I need to get a perfect score.
Well, I think we're all over here kind of hoping that Wanda can come out of the other side of this just a little bit better. She's really been through the ringer probably for the past like 16 years at this point, really ever since House of M.
Yeah.
And kind of been the mutant punching bag, if you will, where ever since decimating half their population, actually I think more than that, it's kind of been like the, you know, mutant pariah, and no one wants to talk to her, and she's shunned, and I mean, earlier on in all the Krakoa stuff, they were telling basically ghost stories about her, so
the great pretender.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully she can come out of the other side of this, you know, in a better place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so first off, I really liked this issue, and shout out to a couple moments that I didn't touch on earlier. North Star, by the way, when Magneto was threatening North Star's like human husband, and he was just straight up like, "I will kill all of you," but like if anything happens to him, like just.
North Star is kind of a dick. I read about him in the Pride anthology. Like, don't get me wrong. I mean, he probably has earned his place with how powerful he seems. But yeah, it was
all about him and his husband like admiring him and their really pretty house. So when I saw them again, I was like, oh yeah, oh, you are angry.
But like, shout outs to him, and shout outs to just so much of this comic. Like, it was really interesting. It kept me on all the way through. But I'm really curious if the end of this series is going to overturn some of the long running Wanda drama. Mm-hmm. Because, and this is me going full tinfoil hat now. I think the Wanda that just came back. So there's a panel in this comic where Wanda is like monologuing about being connected to the magic and that she can, it's like hinting that she can bring herself back. And then at the end of this book, she's back.
Yeah.
That's not the same Wanda. The Wanda that came back kissed Vision. Wanda and Vision broke up like 12 fucking years ago.
Yeah.
Wanda has not... This is an old Cerebro copy of Wanda that Hope went and resurrected with the Five.
I think that might be it.
That's dirty.
I think we're going to have two Wandas, and there's a small chance that coming out the other side of this, we might even get, God help me, like, it would be so exciting if we could, a mutant Wanda. That's
hopefully
all I want. I want her to be a mutant again. End the drama.
It's entirely possible that this Wanda, the Wanda that just returned, is in fact a mutant, and it'll be interesting if they have kind of a mic drop moment in the next one where she can kind of just walk through a gate effortlessly, and that will pretty much be clear evidence that she's a mutant, as only mutants can walk through the gates.
Right? I would be so excited to see that, because it would also really turn on its head the like Krakoan, like you said, the ghost stories, the legacy of the Great Pretender, the witch who destroyed their ranks. Like, take her from the myth and take away the monster and bring her back to where she started. Like, she was a mutant first, and then the great mutant divide because of the X-Men got sold to Fox, and we had years of comics.
All that drama.
And like, so Marvel desperately slashed away at the mutant heritage of Quicksilver and Wanda to add them into this story. And I think we're going to have two Wandas in this story. I think Hope ran off, and I think there was a panel here where we see Mystique. And I also wonder if they were specifically putting Mystique in this scene to show us that Hope might be another character in this scene.
Yeah.
That... Because Hope can borrow powers from any mutant she's nearby. And, like, if they drop a mutant in a scene like Mystique watching from the bushes, that could mean that any mutant we currently watching is Hope using Mystique's power and borrowing that mutant's power to replicate anything, including maybe even Wanda. That might not even be a resurrected Wanda from Cerebro. But the fact that she went right to putting her tongue in Vision's mouth indicates that I think this is an old version of Wanda's memories.
Yeah, no, that's definitely what I'm thinking, and it'll be really interesting to see what the implications of that are. I'm sure some people are not going to be happy that Hope, used Cerebro so recklessly to resurrect Wanda without permission, and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm here to see what happens next. I really am.
That was my first thought when I saw Mystique, because isn't she trying to get her wife back, but they keep telling her no because she needs to keep doing Black Ops missions for them?
Yeah, Xavier and Magneto have really been kind of keeping her on a leash and basically dangling the metaphorical carrot that is destiny in front of her and saying, we'll resurrect your wife at some point, but we need you to do this and this and
so
well, you didn't really succeed, so we're gonna basically need you to keep doing our dirty work forever.
Yeah. So I'm curious if Hope did everything that you guys just laid out, that Mystique's then gonna turn around and be able to use this event as her excuse to get Destiny, because they're not using the resurrection system as faithfully and true to their word as they said they would.
Well, yeah, issue 1 touched on some big drama about, like, whether or not people were, like, there was active discussion amongst the Quiet Council of Krakoa and amongst Magneto and the other mutants on, should we bring Wanda back? A mutant killed Wanda on Krakoan soil. There exists reason enough claim, and even a Cerebro copy of Wanda, because she was once backlogged into Cerebro, that they could bring her back. But then...
and I mean... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, one of the members of the Five, Proteus, is... And that was the thing that always kind of confused me. It was one of the members of the Five, Proteus, is literally a reality warper, which, I mean, that doesn't really have any kind of clearly defined logic to it. So, by all accounts, you could probably resurrect Wanda's husk as a mutant. I'm sure it could be achieved.
Mm-hmm. Well, and same with, like, we had Franklin Richards using his reality warping to make himself a mutant for a while there.
Yeah.
Like, there's all kinds of stuff like that. I don't know. I'm excited for where this book is going to go. My hopes might be too high, thinking we could get a mutant Wanda out of this. But I really just want... To me, that would be like the final peace treaty between X-Men is really all the way back, is that we finally cut away the last of that drama.
Yes, yeah.
So wait, is Quicksilver a mutant?
Quicksilver and Wanda were...
No, I mean...
Currently, no, he's not.
Okay.
Right now, we've been convinced that Magneto just adopted two powerful kids and told them they were mutants or something.
Yeah, it's just with this whole Cerebro part and resurrecting or alternate version of Wanda, that means that she would be a mutant, but Quicksilver wouldn't, by your logic, right?
Technically, yes. They would have to do some comic bookery to turn Quicksilver into a mutant as well.
Okay, as long as it's not an evil twin, then I think we're at a soap opera. So.
Yeah, and I gave this one an 8.5 out of 10. I really like this book.
Nice.
All right. Next on our list, we've got Spider-Woman, number 15, brought to us by writer Carla Pacheco, artist Pere Perez, and lettering by... Sorry. Lettering by Clayton Cowles and color by Frank D'Armata. Sorry about that.
So in this comic, Jessica Drew is awakens in a helicopter. Is that this one?
Yep.
But she rushes back home to protect her kid, and Lindsay fights off a horde of bad guys. And then she brings them with her to meet up with Rebecca at the university, I think. And yeah, I just really enjoyed the fight scene of Spider-Woman in her apartment in this comic. And that's what I wanted to talk about. My favorite moment was on page 12. There's the, like, typical onomatopoeia of comics of, like, put, but it's showing what she did and where she hit this guy in the onomatopoeia. Like, it basically makes itself into these little banners across this guy's body. So you see a fist to his head, a foot to his chest, in the, like, whoosh, pow, like, all these different sound effects. And I thought that it was just so well done. Drawing and all this stuff. Like, it was so beautifully done. And then I also liked... I think this is the first time that I've really seen a woman in a comic that I relate to body shape. Rebecca talks about how her parents met, and it illustrates it, of course. And Rebecca's mom has, like, my figure, and while I'm not a fan of how tight all the suits are for, like, Jessica and the other characters in this comic, they all look very, very sharp and are very, like, modest. They're not, like, scantily clad by any means. So it really felt like it was, like, a feminist take on, like, a classic character of Spider-Woman that I hadn't seen before. I have no introduction to Spider-Woman before this. I really, really liked this comic. I'm excited to be wowed next time. And it felt like there was a lot in motion in this issue that I was only getting snippets of because it's kind of reeling from the last comic where Jessica kind of got, like,
drugged or something by the villain that she's gonna have to face next time. So I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I like this comic. I think it's a good picking up point for where they are in Jessica Drew and her Rebecca is related to her. I can't.
She's like her aunt.
She's like her.
Like Jessica's Rebecca's
her
aunt.
niece. Yeah, and because the Drew family, they're kind of famous, unfortunately, for being radioactive in a not good way. And Rebecca might need the same cure that Spider-Woman does. I think it's cool to see that Rebecca is growing as a character, and by the end of this issue, might come into her own as a central comic book character. And I don't know enough about the character of Rebecca, but I did notice both her super costume and her street clothes feature leg braces. And I don't know what condition, whether it's based on a real condition or if it's generic comic book sickness that requires her to need the leg braces, but I would love to see a superhero sort of represented with, mobility aids and things like that, but still be effective and still be interesting. Like this comic touches on that, gives her a costume. It teases at the end that it won't give her a name, but come on. We also have 3 other Spider Girls right now, so
Yeah.
she's gonna have to come up with something unique for her name.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed this. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. I think it's a good stopover issue on the way to some big action.
Nice. I hadn't read Spider-Woman in a while. I remember reading, I think, the first 5 issues of this run, and then I kind of just fell off, and I wasn't as interested. But it was kind of nice to come back and figure out what was going. It was a little weird for me because when I left the book, she was in a completely different costume and was sick and stuff, and now everything is a little bit different, but still fairly interesting. So. Yeah, I had a fun time with the issue. Thought it had some really cool action, and that was about it. I didn't have a ton of thoughts about this one, so I ended up giving it a 7.5 out of 10. Not bad by any means. Just I don't know. It was fine.
Awesome. All right, and next we go over to the Eternals. Thanos Rises. This one is brought to us by...
Not in this issue, apparently.
Yeah. This issue is brought to us by writer Kieran Gillen, art by Dustin Weaver, color by Matthew Wilson, and lettering by Clayton Cowles. With a gorgeous cover by Isad Rabik. Just throwing that out there. But Brandon, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the best way to start off this review is to literally just verbatim read the captions from the first 3 pages, which is 200,000 years ago was a quiet time, except when it wasn't, which I think is the best way to describe literally all the chaos shit that is going on during the what they call last battle preceding the Titan Schism, and what a schism it is. But to give you a little bit of clarity on what that actually means, it seems that there are currently 2 factions at war right now, and that is the Zerasians and the Alarzites, anyway. And basically, the main source of their frustration is the idea of Eternals reproducing and increasing their lineage. And in particular, Alars wants to take the more natural route. He believes in the ideas of Eternals mating and getting in and having some fun like humans do. And, just trying to give birth to some beautiful, gorgeous Eternals children. And Zurus is like, no, I don't want to do that because it's not natural. And also, you don't know what might happen. And Alars is like, but we can find out and it can be a good thing. And boy, that's going to bite you in the ass later. But it's all good. Alars is given the option to live the rest of his life in exile and conduct his own experiments, with the caveat that this entire war will come to an end and everyone will effectively have their minds wiped and rebooted, which I guess is a common theme in eternal society, where if things get out of hand, you can just reboot it and start over again, start from scratch. Just imagine if human society was like that. Things get dicey, things get bad. Let's just hit the reset button and start over. But in any case, Alars decides to screw off to the planet Titan, where his former lover / counterpart, Susan, has been living among the ruins of Titan. And Alars is really coming there with a proposal to create something beautiful and bountiful for Titan. Not just getting some nasty, which seems like that's his main goal, but hopefully creating a nice and beautiful new society on Titan that will thrive and create new life and everything. But before Alars can get to any serious kind of work, he's visited by his father, who informs him that everything that he is doing and everything that he's planning in natural eternal birth is a mistake, and you're going to regret it. It's going to be a big downfall for you and everyone that you know. And he seems to have no problem with it. He's like, I'll just marry the woman I love and have kids, and everything will be fine. And it seems like it would be, because they managed to rebuild Titan to be a booming metropolis. But unfortunately, the first time that Alars and Susan have kids, it really doesn't go that well, because one of their second-born children is none other than Thanos, who literally emerges from the womb a disgusting purple monster who ends up punishing his entire family and sending them to their deaths. And Alars punishes himself for it, ends up in exile before finally meeting his doom at the hands of his own son. And really, what more poetic way is there to die than that? But Alars, in the mercy of the machine, is reborn in the exclusion and seemingly believes that, all right, well, I screwed up, but hey, I've been reborn, I'll be repurposed at some point. But it doesn't seem that that's going to be the case, as he is going to be excluded from the entire Eternals family. And we've heard exclusion before, but we never really had the full context of what that actually meant until now. And boy, it is something really, really dark. Apparently, to be excluded, at least in the context of this story, is to literally be locked in a dark vault forever. And in Alars' case, I think they even take it a step further, to be locked in a solitary room by yourself, where Alars has to look upon the lights that represent every single victim that Thanos had ever taken throughout the cosmos. And I mean, for someone who literally destroyed half the population once, that's going to be a lot of fucking lights that you have to stare at. Which naturally it is, because it burns out Alars' eyes within a couple days or so. I think they mentioned it was a week, but it seems that is where Alars will be staying for the rest of his days, forced to live with the results and terrible resolutions of his actions in creating one of the worst, most genocidal monsters in the entire galaxy. But I thought this was a pretty cool story. I mean, it was a very lore heavy, and I mean, if you have been reading the main Eternals story so far and you're looking for something that is going to advance the story, this is certainly not that. For a book called Thanos Rising, it literally has nothing to do with Thanos at all, so if you find yourself being a little bit disappointed in that, especially considering that Thanos is featured pretty prominently on the cover, this issue is probably going to be a little weird for you. But in terms of kind of like a fun exploration on Eternals lore, I thought it was pretty well done, and I really love the art from Dustin Weaver and Matt Wilson. It just has these gorgeous landscapes and character moments that I really love. And Dustin did a book with John Hickman called Shields that I don't know if you guys have read, but that's a really great book too, and does a lot of the kind of artistic stuff that this book does as well. So I liked it as a interesting but also tragic story of Alars. I thought it did a pretty decent job, but I would totally understand if it is like way out of left field for someone just looking for like an Eternal story with Thanos also there, because this is definitely not that. But I still dug it, so I gave this one an 8.25 out of 10.
Awesome. Yeah, I read this book. I liked it well enough for the story of Alar's creating Thanos. It was interesting. It was very verbose, which sort of worked against it in its beginning piece with Alar's and Zuras. There's a page that's literally filled with like their previous debates, and
yes, I forgot to highlight that one, but I love the description of that page, because it is literally called A Brief Introduction to Key Arguments in the Titanos Schism, and it is just a page of text of them just bickering back and forth. And it's so funny.
And it's like literally debating, like they're literally just like, oh, what you just did, that's ad hominem. Oh, what you're saying is pure sophistry. Like, it's literally just them calling each other out on bad debate tactics for a page of text. There's not even pictures on this page. It's so goofy. And in like a weird way I liked it, and in like a weird way I was like, I can't recommend this to people. Like,
yeah.
And then I think my biggest complaint with this book is, and Brandon, you hit this, is it's not an Eternals book. Like, if you're looking at the Eternals trailer and you're like, I want to read that, this isn't that. It barely explains who the Eternals are. You don't meet any of the Eternals really outside of, you see Icarus and Sprite for a couple pages in this book, and I think Cersei once, and they're going to be in the movie, but I don't know that Zuras or Alars will be.
I don't think so.
And so, like, this book doesn't focus on Eternals that you could care about. It doesn't explain their relationship with the Deviants. It doesn't really talk about anything the Eternals are. And then on the flip side, this isn't a book about Thanos.
No.
Like,
it almost feels like false advertising. Because, I mean, literally, I think Thanos shows up in a couple panels as the result of Alar's and Susan's relationship. But
I don't think...
it doesn't really rise in any capacity.
Yeah, and I don't think adult Thanos is ever shown on screen, like, as, like, a fully realized character. They show the gross little purple baby, and I think they show, like, a silhouette of him killing Alars. But, like, Thanos does not feature in this book, and really the Eternals don't. It's a very specific story, and I cannot find evidence... This is a number one, but as Marvel put number one on anything. I cannot find evidence that there will be a number two.
No, I think this is this is literally just they're doing like a series of one shots, and this is literally just like we're setting kind of a story in the Eternals past, and that's it. Which is like kind of a cool idea, but again, if you've been following the main series, this is just going to feel like a kind of a weird detour.
Yeah, everything about this was just like a little bit not quite what you expect to see from the book based on the cover. I gave it a 7 out of 10. It was enjoyable but weird, and I think it didn't deliver on being a book that actually explained Thanos' relationship to the Eternals, which would have been cool to spend a bit more time on going into the Eternals movie, considering straight up in the trailer, one of the humans in the trailer asks an Eternal, why didn't you guys help with Thanos? Like that's a question that's going to be in the movies soon, and I felt like the Eternals comic with Thanos on the cover should have done more for that, and I don't think it did. I might be holding the wrong things against it, but as a purchase decision, I don't think this comic justifies its title with what's inside the pages. But it's a fine story.
Oh yeah.
I tried to read it and fell asleep. No, it, like you guys said, it's very lore heavy up front, very I also thought it was very cerebral. Like, I thought that all of the, like you said, talking about using the different tactics in debate, like, I don't know what most of those words mean. Like, I don't know what schism means even. Like, And it's not that I couldn't Google it, but it just felt like so much homework. And again, it wasn't immediately the Eternals that I recognized. And if this was a series that was tying to the movie, I would like force myself to do the research because I would want to know that stuff. Because now, if I go to this movie and I don't even remember their names anymore, either of these two characters ends up being the bad guy or something, like Alars or Adam, the other guy, whatever. I feel like I need to invest, but it didn't encourage me to do so.
Cool.
You know, phrases like this is simple sophistry and all that kind of stuff was like, I definitely get that. For me, it literally just felt like I was sitting in one of my college classes because like that's to be expected. Like, people are always trying to impress others with the big words they can use, but like it was definitely very like cerebral. I like that word. I definitely feel like that. That's definitely what I was going for. Where it's like
we're smarter than you. We've been alive for 1,000,000 years.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. That's the last of our comics this week. So now we can recap what we can go through what our favorites were this week, our least favorite, and what's our favorite panel. Jess, do you want to go first?
My favorite this week was Trial of Magneto. My least favorite was Web of Spider-Man. My favorite, panel was the Spider-Woman, where she's literally like, punch! And you see her fist in his gut.
All right. Brandon.
My favorite book this week was also Trial of Magneto. My least favorite... I don't know. I mean... I'd probably give it to... I didn't read Web of Spider-Man, and none of them were really bad, but... I didn't score Iron Man 12, but I feel like if I had to, that would probably be the weakest one I read. But my favorite moment of this week definitely has to go to Eternals Thanos Rising, the double-page spread of just like all the Eternals just in action, and one of them's riding like a mechanized dinosaur, and it just looks so cool. Like, even if you have no idea what's going on, like, that's just an awesome image.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my favorite, we're 3 for 3. My favorite this week was Trial of Magneto. I love that book. Honorable mentions going to, I think, Marauders probably is my second favorite this week. I don't really have a lot of big pulls to give out. My least favorite... lowest score I gave to Web of Spider-Man, but thinking about least favorite, I am far less likely to purchase or recommend purchasing Kang than I am Web of Spider-Man. Web of Spider-Man has an audience. I don't know where Kang sits. Like, if Kang 3 doesn't wow me, I don't know that I can finish out the series. And I did finish out Web of Spider-Man, which says something. And then my favorite moment, I think, is in Trial of Magneto, Magneto versus Polaris. There's a cool panel of, another father-daughter drama in the midst of Trial of Magneto. Mm-hmm. Well, that's the show. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and thank you, Jess and Brandon, for tuning in and reviewing some comics. Yeah. I want to thank everyone and remind our audience that you can get access to our Patreon and you can learn more about what it offers, as well as all the great shows that Not a Robot is putting out every week over at notarobotpodcasts.com. With that said, as always, there's only one way we say goodbye around here.
Until next time.
Be good to each other.
And don't be a robot.